start. My name is Katy Newlin, and I want to thank you guys all for being here. I want to thank Jacob explicitly from the Sierra Club. You guys met him outside. Sierra Club and 350 co-hosted this event, so thank you infinitely for absolutely everything, because without that and CPL, we would not be able to have this space and be here today to have a really nice dialogue. I think it logs, so we might want to leave it open. Anyway, with that, I'd like to extend that gratitude towards you guys, because without all of you guys taking your Monday evening to be here for this kind of creative discussion and sounding board, it wouldn't be happening, right? So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being here and for actually just the act of being here. The act of showing up already evokes a sense of curiosity, because you're here to learn something different, to potentially shift your own perspective towards how to tackle global challenges, right? So without even implementing anything, you can forget all of this. I think that's already beyond enough because you've shown up. So thank you for showing up for yourself and for everything that you interact with every single day. So when I started to make the introduction for this has been one of the most challenging presentations I've ever tried to craft an intro for. And that's because my background is completely scientific. Every talk I've ever given is completely science-based. And so one way I started to think about this presentation, and actually the draft I sent Jacob at the beginning, was all data visualization and all text and everything just in list format. And so as an example, this is what I was going to walk you guys through, was an entire talk of data showing the importance of climate change. But you guys already know that importance because you're here. So while this is a really elegant representation, these are climate strikes by Ed Hawkins, and it shows from 1850 to 2017, an incremental temperature increase of 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. We can see explicitly from this exponential increase at the end that there's a demand. There's a demand for our creative thinking and our innovation to come up with solutions to address global action and climate change now. Well, that introduction isn't going to work rather well, or that approach isn't going to work, because if I data dump on you all day, it's not going to do anything because you already know the issues. So what if I tell a personal narrative, right? Some really inspirational story to guide you through something, and at the end of this talk, you're going to leave here and change the world. Okay, well that's not me either. I'm not a personal narrative kind of woman, and honestly, I don't have something that's groundbreaking. Because for me, something that lines with my priorities so strongly is just inherently part of my nature. That's it. I would do this regardless of a presentation or regardless of a demand, because I'm so innately bound to align my priorities with daily actions. And so what I decided to do was instead lead by example. And so what I want to do is very simple. I want to take all of this time that we have here and guide you through things by trial and error that I've found that work rather well in my lifestyle, with what I have right now. Maybe these work for you guys and maybe they don't, but they're ideas and they're a platform off of which we can build to create other ideas and other notions and solutions to ultimately address climate change and our entire interaction with the world around us. And so I remember the first time that I was awakened to this, and I walked into my bathroom and I looked at just personal products. So I actually invite you for one moment. Take a minute to think about everything that you interact with on a daily basis, just in terms of what you put on your body or your skin. All the shampoos you use, the conditioners, the products. Where do you buy them and how do you use them? So if we start to think about all of those things, I remember walking into the bathroom and being completely in awe. My containers, remember the personal priority person that just told you that I align all of my actions with my priorities, was completely lacking. There was a huge discontinuity. And so what I did was I started to look at all those shampoo bottles and find alternatives. All of those single-use products that I had to continually purchase and find substitutes. So these are really nice, simple alternatives for all of that. So for instance, did you guys know that 2 billion disposable razors are thrown away every year? And I'm not going to throw statistics at you this entire time. That's one of the only ones that I have stockpiled. But that's a substantial amount. And so something that to me hits so strongly is, while yes, you can switch to a metal-handled razor, right? This isn't an end-all be-all solution. This is an incremental step because the head is still plastic. It's still disposable. But it's something so much better than a single plastic razor that we all use. A next step up from this metal-handled razor would be a safety razor, right? A blade that you can insert in, very old-school approach, works absolutely beautiful, depending on the fact that you find metal that's sustainably produced. The next best thing, actually the most sustainable approach, is just stop shaving, right? That's actually one of the best solutions. But in partnering with something like this, right, we also use creams. Shaving creams, soaps, and everything. So these two items here in the center and on the far right represent other alternatives that you can use. The one in the middle is a shaved soap bar. It has a lot of lathering potential, and what I actually did was upcycle this little food container as a way to travel with it. So the soap bars and shampoo bars that we can use that have almost no packaging, so you can find naked ones, farmers markets, local grocery stores, or you can find soap bars, right, that have a sheath of paper plastic or paper packaging around it, or even plastic sometimes. But you can find ones that are completely naked or just paper that can then be recycled. So we continue to go through this, right? Really simple items, but what I didn't finish when I was talking about the razors is that if we think of the culmination of every item that we ever interact with and its lifespan, so think of every toothbrush you've ever used and thrown away. Every razor blade you've ever used and thrown away. And it can continue, Q-tips, etc. Right? It's a massive quantity from just one person. One single interaction that you control completely in your entire surrounding environment. So for instance, a toothbrush, and all of these brands, I know I said it to some of you before, are not promoting the explicit brands. There are some that I found that work really well. For bamboo toothbrushes, they're all basically equivalent. All of them are the same. So some of them are sustainably produced, some of them are not. But at the end of the day, these are actually biodegradable materials compared to a plastic, right? It's almost no-brainer. The mouthfeel is completely different, and I have actually all of this scribbled down for you guys online so you don't have to write it all down. But there are a lot of details. I'm going to go through high level here. But they have a different feel, so they take some adjustment. But it's really simple, and they're not that much more expensive. Now, dental lace is a substitute for dental floss. I have not tried this product, which is why it's not my own picture. And all of these photographs are actually thanks to Fernando in the back, who took all of these images for every single product that I own, or that we own. So dental lace is a substitute for conventional dental floss. So normal dental floss is a nylon-based material. It's synthetic, it does not biodegrade, and it's sheathed in usually some kind of a wax-like product, also not biodegradable. This is an alternative. It's not vegan. It's produced from silk and then coated with beeswax on the surface. But the really nice thing about these is that they're in glass containers with metal lids, and you just purchase the insert. So I haven't tried it, and this is another big point to the topic, is that I'm using what I have around me already. So when I started going through, my knee-jerk reaction was to take everything I own and throw it in the trash or recycling bin and start from scratch. And that's not what I did. And that's not because I didn't want to, right? I wanted to get rid of all the evidence and start over. But I used every product that I had, and so I haven't gone to this product or any kind of substitute because I already have a bunch of those little tiny plastic containers filled with dental floss. So when I'm done with those, I'll move on. This is another product I have not tried, but they just launched. They surpassed all of their goals on Kickstarter immediately, and I'm really excited to try it. These are reusable cotton swabs. So you can clean them with alcohol, you can clean them with soap, and they're using conventional materials that we have in the lab and research phase. These are 3D printed materials. So they're using technology that we have the power to use in new ways. And so I invite you guys, as we continue to go through these list by list items, that you think about how you can have new alternatives and solutions to actually address these problems. products that we use, right? For instance, face lotions or lotions on our skin. Almost all of those have stemmed from the transition from oils into lotions. And the main driving force that caused that manufacturing shift and that scientific innovation was because of feel. It's more enjoyable for the feel on your skin to put lotion on than it is oil, is what most consumers find. So by supply and demand, those are better packaged because of the polymer or the science behind those materials, that it's easier to squeeze out by a plastic container. So by switching from lotions to oils, such as this, again, any oils will do, you can revert back to something like glass containers. The advantage to this, and this still has some flaws, right? It still has a plastic cap, it still has a rubber topper, and those are not recyclable nor really reusable if they break, right? But what I like about these bottles is once I'm done with those blends, then you can take this container and then refill it with a bulk solution. So now you can buy bulk oils, you can make your own blends, you can add essential oils, and you can modify it to fit your own body. Another really simple solution, you probably can't even tell what this is coconut oil. Coconut oil is something everybody loves. And so you have to realize that, do your research. Is it sustainably produced? Where is it manufactured? How is it made? These are all questions you still have to ask in the back of your mind. But the nice thing about this is it's so readily available to find in a glass container, in bulk. And then you can take an aliquot of this. This is also an upcycled, I think it's basil pesto jar. And I just put it inside there, and I take it with me when I travel, when I go to work. And they're just little aliquots that sit all over so that when I travel, I don't have to use small containers, I don't use single-use items, I have everything with me. Continuing on the hair trend, and I continue this because these are some products that almost everyone is using in some capacity, right? And if we think about every product we put on there, it's substantial. So one thing that you can use as an alternative, so we talked about shampoo bars, right? We talked about conditioner alternatives. Both the oil and the coconut oils can be used as conditioners based on your hair type, based on what you like. But an alternative for conditioner to begin with is apple cider vinegar. One disclaimer, regardless of how much you dilute this, if you use it on your hair, it will slightly smell like apple cider vinegar. I cannot seem to deviate from that, no matter how much I read about it and dilute. The key thing is you don't put this on your hair explicitly, right? You have to dilute it. And the reason behind that, and the reason behind why this is so great for face toner and hair, is that the pH of the skin on your face and your hair is around 4.5 to 5.5. Most shampoos and conditioners are not set up for this. So actually, by switching to more sustainable products, it's even better as a feel on your skin and your hair. All right, moving on to dry shampoo. Dry shampoos, anything that comes in a propellant canister, you basically can't do anything with that. So there's twofold problems here. One, what do you do with the material, which underlies I find the resounding need or a demand for complete overhaul is the recycling system. How we recycle. The fact that anything smaller than 2 inches falls through, which is why we can't recycle straws or weird-shaped objects. They just fall through the actual conveyor belts going into a recycling manufacturing process. So that needs a redesign. The other thing is that all of the propellants also go into our atmosphere. They go into the world around us. And we're putting those chemicals on ourselves. So a really simple solution, and almost all of these are more cost-effective than all the other non-sustainable items, is any kind of a powder, and this is Arrowroot Powder. So I've tried a bunch of different dry shampoo combinations. Most of them do not work, but this one is. And the nice thing is that you can find these powders in bulk, sometimes. So this is Arrowroot Powder. You can tint it with cocoa powder, you can tint it with turmeric based on your hair color, essential oils if you want flavors, and I've put it in a little dish that I already had and covered it with beeswax, which we'll talk about later. Alright, this is one of my absolute favorite slides. And this is one of my absolute, you guys even recognize this. Favorite slides because this hits home the point of data dumping, begging, fear-mongering. All of those approaches don't work. We resist change because we don't want to deal with the consequences of not doing change. right? If we don't change, something bad's going to happen. And it's easier to not change and deny it on a daily basis than to do anything about it. This is an example of how you don't have to do any of that. You just show up. You show up as you are, right now, with what you're working on, and people notice. And so these are what I take to lunch every day, which is why these guys were laughing, because they've seen me carry this to lunch. This is a glass container. It doesn't matter what container you're using, whether you use what you have already, even if it's plastic. If that suits you and you already have it, use it. If you already have it and you want to get rid of it, maybe upcycle it, right? Put it towards something that's not food-based, but still use it until it dies. Glass containers are absolutely phenomenal because they're a step in the right direction. They're not an end-all be-all solution. And I talk about a bunch of different options for containers on the listing that I'll give you guys at the end. Spoons, cutlery. If you carry cutlery with you, it's a game changer. One, people notice. They ask you about it, they ask you why you're carrying it, etc. And then a couple behind the scenes that I didn't put on here, I carry a cloth napkin with me and any canvas bag that I can find. I don't buy a lunchbox. I just take a canvas bag, I throw my glass container in with my spork, which I had from camping, a cloth napkin, and that's it, and a water bottle or a mug. And wait, the punchline here is that the majority of people at my work, and I haven't mentioned it to them once, have already started carrying cutlery, straws, cups, everything with them without me even saying it. It's absolutely remarkable how much people take note. Okay, beverages. Beverages are a really interesting one for me because at work, especially now that I transitioned from an academic concept to industry, there are drink containers everywhere in the sense of paper cups. At least we have paper cups. But we have coffee machines, and it's readily available for people to use. And they take one cup, they fill it up, they drink it, they throw it away. I even watch people take one sip, drink it, and throw it away. And it's because it's easy. And while from the bottom of my heart I believe people are always doing the best they can with what they have, and so we don't understand why people might need to take a quick sip and throw it away. This is a really nice alternative. You pick a favorite mug that you have and you carry it with you everywhere, right? And I quite evilly put drink containers back there without cups because I didn't want to buy cups that I didn't already have to bring, right? So if we change the way that we think and we brought a canister with us or a water bottle with us, we would always have something to not have to use something around us. For tea and coffee, right? French press is a really nice alternative to filters. If you're going to buy filters, unbleached products versus bleached products have a substantial reduction in emission footprint. So the chemicals that go into bleaching products are substantially worse as an offset compared to unbleached. For tea strainers are really ideal. These two explicitly, I have no idea whether they're sustainably produced or not. We just had them lying around. So I think that it's really nice to use what you have, but then also to dive into the research around products that you might hear that might be of interest. Lastly, I will also point out, these are a lot of flaws, right? I'm pointing out a lot of flaws here. Our metal straws. Straws have a huge reputation right now, right? Nobody wants to take a straw, or they want it to be composting or biodegradable or blah. I bought this on a whim. I saw it at a coffee shop. I'm like, I'm sustainable. I'll purchase that and show everyone. It'll be great. It'll lead by example. I've never hardly used it. I bought it without doing any research. It was $2, and that's it. So I think sometimes we get into the trap of wanting to purchase things just to have that Band-Aid fix, right? To cover something up or to make it look in a certain way, and we don't always need them. So one, questioning what you need. Also, here's my water bottle collection. How many water bottles does one person actually use? How many do you actually need at one moment in time? Maybe two, maybe. If you took something like this, which I did a lot of research into, this is one brand that actually does a relatively alright job at trying to offset the emissions that they have. And well, again, online it talks about a lot of different bottles in detail, and it's going to get updated as a function of time. But this could be one product you use, right? It's for hot beverages, could be for cold beverages. I use it for coffee, so I need two. I always carry one with me, and then this one also. But what happens is people give you gifts. So the majority of these are free. They're from vendors. I think I purchased this guy from Vermont. And it's my work mug. It goes everywhere with me. So, but while this might look bad, right? I have way too many water bottles for what I need. Think about how many cups you would use on an every single day basis, and how many you would throw away, and how many have plastic linings inside, and how many are bleached, and how many are not recycled. So while this looks atrocious, it's actually nothing compared to other materials, even though these likely have a much higher emission because they're metals. In general, plastics have a much lower emission. Same story continues here. I'm going to start with the figure on the right. So if we look at these bags are mostly also free. They're from vendors. And so what I did at one point is I stood back and I said, instead of taking the free pens, which why we have all the pens in the back, for you guys to please take and use, upcycle. But all those pens are from vendors. These bags are from vendors. USB drives, everything. So I've started to stop taking them. And by stopping to take them, or to stop stopping to take them, there's a dialogue that was created between vendors. They're curious as to why we don't want them. And when you have that dialogue as to, well, maybe next time you won't have to bring so many. And while that's probably not as good of a marketing benefit for them, it brings to light that people actually care. And so next time, actually, there have been people who talk about different kinds of organic cotton or different materials that you're using, because not all bags are equal. That's another thing. So in general, one plastic bag has a much lower emission footprint than a cloth bag, than a plastic bag that's reusable. When we wash them, microplastics can go out if they're any kind of synthetic material. Same thing for clothing. Every synthetic item of clothing that's not just cotton-based or wool or a natural material leaches out microplastics every time. So rather than purchasing new, using what you have, and being cognitive of what we use. All right, veggie bags. So when you go to the grocery store and you buy produce, fruits and vegetables, and you fill your cart with them, rather than taking plastic bags, I actually love to take, it's one of my favorite things also, is to take and fill up my entire cart with a monolayer of fruits and veggies, naked. So I try to find everything. I make it a challenge to find how much I can find in the grocery store that has nothing on it. It's very challenging. Like berries don't exist without packaging. So for the most part, we don't buy berries anymore. But an alternative to that, oh, and the reason I do this is because people notice. You get in the line, and everyone has piles of stuff, and you have one monolayer of fruits and veggies, people take note. It's obvious. But an alternative, when I pack them to come home, these guys are little veggie bags. You can find any kind of stuff. An alternative to buying something is to use an old t-shirt and also make little bags from it, which is what I've also done before. It's just hard to make as. All right, laundry detergents. These are really nice alternatives to products that we use one time and recycle or throw away. They're also laden with a lot of chemicals which overstrip clothing, because surfactants now in laundry detergents are so effective at stripping and collapsing dirt together that they end up sticking to your clothing, which is now the motivation for a marketing product known as fabric softener. So because we've over-engineered a product, which is a great marketing reason, right, and I love the science behind it, going into needing fabric softener. So how do we do that? We can find more natural detergents. These are actually a glass container that's in a local store, and I'm going to walk you guys through a little tour of places, not physically, but places around us that you guys can find these locally, so you don't have to go hunt for them. But this is a local Pemberton Farms that actually produces or provides the bottle for you to purchase, and then it has a refill station. So they have hand soap, laundry detergents, etc. If you don't want a natural kind of laundry detergent material, you can also try Econuts. These are also in bulk. You can buy them locally, you can buy them online. But these guys are naturally surfactant producing and a lot are fabric softening. So they're kind of a 2-in-1 approach. So you throw them in with your wash, it washes everything, and then you can actually put them in the dryer if you want. It doesn't harm them. After over like 20 times of use in this little bag, they're dead, and then you just throw them away and they degrade. End of story. One caveat. These are delightful and useful for like office wear clothing. So very non-stinky clothing at the end of the day. If you're using athletic wear, it's not very effective. I'll be very, very transparent. It's not wonderful, and it's not something that we really go to. This is the primary product that we end up using, and we've tried quite a few different kinds. This one's really nice. This, any guesses to what this is?
Organic oil?
Nope.
Oil.
Huh?
You're reusing it as an oil dispenser.
Yes, olive oil. It is. Yeah, so we took a wine bottle, and after that was finished, we put olive oil inside, and then this little stopper was also purchased locally in Cambridge. It's not made locally, probably also not made sustainably. It was like $2. So this is our olive oil, and we have not purchased another bottle of olive oil for over like 6 months now. So we just refill also at the same place where we buy our laundry detergent. So we usually just take one trip, we buy our bulk items that we want, and that's all we buy there. This is our walk. So you don't have to actually go anywhere. This is in a local area, and also this is going to be online. It's not on the site right now, but I will upload this for local areas, and each product that I've listed is kind of linked to areas. So, high-level overview, Pemberton Farms has bulk olive oil, bulk laundry detergent, bulk balsamic vinegar. Goodwill is just I'm not really promoting Goodwill or any other stores here. The concept there is buying used clothing. That's my whole spiel on that. We're not going to have time to get into everything. Star Market has bulk kombucha. It's basically, they have bulk products in the back also, like rice and grains. Cambridge Naturals is really phenomenal for soaps. You can find naked soaps there, meaning uncovered soaps. They have a really nice brand that I also did not put online yet, but that one is actually powered by bike. So it doesn't even have anything as a cost for footprint for just the production of it in terms of the manufacturing of the soap. So everything has a cost though. Thistle and Shamrock also has bulk laundry detergent, and they have naked bread. So you can buy bread as a loaf, so you can do 2 in 1 there. And then lastly, Whole Foods actually has a lot of different shampoo bars and also a really nice bulk section and naked hand soaps. So when we think about every single thing that we use, it all begins to really add up, right? So maybe one toothbrush doesn't make that big of a difference, or one razor. But when we think about 2 billion per year, that really adds up, and it extends to everything that we have. So every pairwise interaction with our surroundings and ourselves really begins to have a culminated, a completely encompassing effect, right? So it's all culminating together. So what if we zoom out even further, right? So we talked about personal interactions with your surroundings, but what happens whenever that becomes dissatisfying? What happens when that's not enough? And so for me, this is where I started, and I was doing it all personally. But I found that I felt like that just wasn't enough, which is one reason why this introduction and giving this presentation was so hard, is because sometimes when we step back, we really find things to be trivial. And that can be demotivating. And that can make us not want to do something, right? But if we start to reach out and find different organizations, so this is one of the local communities that I found that was absolutely phenomenal, which was the Sierra Club. Jacob was at this Train the Trainer talk that I went to, which was training people how to give a presentation on local involvement. And while I have wildly deviated from that talk, this was an absolutely phenomenal footground to stand on. And so when I began to look around to different groups, I became inspired. I realized how much people were putting in effort that I was completely unaware of. And so this is one way to get involved, right? You can reach out to local organizations, and I think I found this by doing a Google search of sustainable actions that are going, or like events that are coming up. And I went through Eventbrite, and I'm also going to write this all up so you guys can see kind of this trajectory. But I essentially just started looking for things that were happening that were free. And this is one of those. And now I've worked with multiple people in this photo here just to start brainstorming ideas and how to get involved and how to work with the community around us. So this is one really nice way. This is another way. This is a strike that happened at Harvard. And it was a plea to divest funding that's going towards petroleum and oil. Strikes happen all the time. And in the US, they're just beginning to gain traction. But in general, around the world, students are doing climate strikes every single Friday. And they're demanding that politicians stand up and wake up to what's happening around us. And so I think that this is a really wonderful way to see how much people care and channel it into all of the other personal interactions that you have. This is another one, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on local so that at the end we can have a dialogue and Jacob will come up and we'll have an entire discussion if you guys want and questions around local involvement. But this is one way you can get in touch and contact with your local representatives. This has really powerful potential that I was very unaware of, but after reading a bunch of different articles and really understanding how politicians work, you can begin to see that calling, the data behind it shows that calling or emailing or reaching out actually has a substantial effect. So it's really remarkable how much people are willing to listen. Another thing, Green New Deal. I'm also not going to get into the details here, but this is one thing that we're really trying to push and is becoming, again, a platform on which to stand. So while this concept is a really nice starting point, we need more. We need more on every single front. And so taking this concept and expanding it even wider and realizing what bills you can advocate for locally is another thing that if you're interested, you can also do. What happens when we take a step back one more time? Right? When we step out and zoom out even further. So if you think about everything that you interact with on a daily basis, and a weekly basis, and a year, and then you zoom out and you think about every person you interact with on a local level, right? Every community setting like this. What happens when we extend that mentality and those practices and what we've learned from trial and error into national levels? What happens? And so one way to get involved on a global scale is to find other organizations, right? So what I found actually was so my background is chemical engineering, and I reached out to a group and I became part of the Society of Women Engineers. And what that allowed me to do was to go to a training in DC. I took that training where I was advocating for women in STEM, and I realized the correlations by talking with a lot of people and having, it was not my own concept, but realizing the parallels between women in STEM and global climate change, and how people are treated and how the environment's treated. And I took that standpoint and advocated not only for women in STEM, but for climate action at DC. So I went to Capitol Hill. One of my representatives is Elizabeth Warren. I met with one of her representatives. And we had actual personal interactions, and we told personal narratives. And the response from meeting with locals, representatives, was outstanding. They actually listened, they actually took note, and the positive, whether they actually did anything with that, the positive interaction that I had with them made me feel like they actually were listening, and that they actually took that into account. And it's just that not enough of us were going to them with our concerns. Not enough of us were taking time to advocate for climate change and for things that are going to impact us and are impacting us already. And so, and another thing, so while I went to strikes with people, I've also done strikes on my own, which is terrifying. So I sat out at the reflection pool on DC, and I sat there silently with two signs on the same day that hundreds of thousands of kids across, not the US, were fighting for climate change. They were advocating in the streets and sounding the alarm and the concept that climate change is now and we need change. We need innovation. We need creativity and to think about all of the things that we have the power to shift and the power to change. And so what does this mean, right? Where do we go next? So while a lot of these concepts are really simple, seemingly, right? One little shift is something that we can take and implement. But in the grand scheme of things, how do we begin to take our priorities and our daily actions and merge them? So if you think a moment, just take one moment to think about your priorities, right? Just scribble them down or list them in your head. So think about your priorities, one or two. And then if you take a moment to think about maybe your top 2 daily actions, most time-consuming actions you do in the day. And how far deviated are those from each other? How far detached are they? And what little step do you think you could take to maybe begin to bring them together. And so, while not everyone has the luxury or the privilege to get to do what we're about to do, that doesn't mean you can't do incremental things. And so what I'm doing to really work towards that is by completely overhauling my day, completely stripping what I'm doing, and by exiting a classic 9-to-5 career path and going towards something unknown, I'm working really diligently to take sustainability and make them aligned with daily priorities. And that's because of a lot of reasons, right? But not everyone gets to do that, which is why it's really important to come back to understanding, why people do what they do. It's not bad necessarily that they're doing something that's not sustainable, just why. So anyway, we are going on a bike touring trip across Canada and eventually all of North America and South America with the premise of going around and researching, at least for me. So to research what people are doing in terms of regenerative agriculture, how their interactions on a molecular level that interface between soil and crop roots and the air interface in a way to kind of promote companion planting or whatever it may be as a regenerative solution that extends beyond what currently is available. And so what I invite you to do from this is to take one moment and think of one thing that might work in your life. What's one thing that you can commit to doing starting now? So take a moment to think of that. And then what I invite you to do is turn to somebody that you don't know, just behind you or around you, or maybe you already know them, and share that with them. Excellent. What's your sustainable agriculture?
One of the things I try they are like really useful, but our approach is like something combined. You're not really using it's really hard to repeat. But yeah, that's another thing. Like the wash because the whole point of switching radically to one thing is to make a step towards I think we got them from Kingston. Like one of those places TV shows. They are all in the try to actually, career phase, we have a and so I think we have to have a really active team that is providing. And when you take the regulations to stop so, for example, like we have a whole jar of over there. Those are mostly the ones that I have in mind before. Yeah, like from college. They were for free, so I was like,
anything that's a remarkable conclusion beyond the fact that by you guys showing up here today, I really fundamentally believe in the fact that every single thing that we do has a dramatic implication. It has a profound effect, and everything that we interact with and how we treat things it ripples towards everything. So with that, all I really want to do is take a moment. I'll come back to that actually, because I really want to thank people first. So I want to thank, most importantly, Sierra Club, and Jacob explicitly has helped me via soundboard and brainstorming and everything. So thank you guys. Thank you for co-hosting this. I appreciate it infinitely.
Thank you.
I want to thank 350 who stepped up to the plate and co-hosted this, because to get this room at CPL, we needed a Cambridge-based organization. So they stepped up and spread the word and everything. So thank 350 as well, and thanks Sue explicitly from them. Cambridge Public Library, I want to thank explicitly, of course, for this room and the space, and they let me come in before and see everything, so they were absolutely phenomenal. I also want to thank Crystal for brainstorming with me. She helped me come up with titles and themes, and it was a really nice sounding board. And I also want to thank Fernando in the back. He took all of the photos of all of the images here. He has diligently listened to this talk and every brainstorm intro and every lack of intro therefore, and for just being absolutely incredible. So thank you. And thank you guys for your attention. What I want to do is that if any of this is really exciting in terms of, I didn't talk a lot about it, but going forward with sustainable regenerative agriculture, if you know of anybody or are interested in that, and to any extent, feel free to reach out to me. And you can reach out to me through these venues. Also, I promised that everything was written down. It is. It is on my very brand new website. Also, big thanks to Fernando for helping with all of that, technical details. That list is in its infancy. So, right now it is bare bones. It has some links to things. What I plan to do in the future is to take all of the data that I found and integrate it in, for those of you who want to see that. All of the infographics that I found, those will also be on there. All of the research papers that I found will also be linked. So it'll have a lot more data science-y feel and a much more detailed product description into how I got to all of these end results that I really like. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for questions and discussion.
Can I say like 3 things?
Yes.
Maybe 1.5 things even?
Yes.
So first of all, thank you again, Katie. Thank you for coming. My name is Jacob Stern. I'm with the Massachusetts Sierra Club. We're going to send you these links and the resources Katie's talking about, follow-up email as well, in case you don't take a picture of this. So don't worry about it, it's incoming. And then also, in addition to all the other great things I'm sure you're doing in your lives, Sierra Club really believes in broad structural change. Changes you make in your personal life are super important, and that's how things start. But we know that that's not how we're going to change the world, is one person at a time. We need some cooperation with our policymakers and leaders. So if you're interested in joining that fight, come talk to me, respond to one of the several emails you've gotten from me or will get from me. And yeah, there's lots of work happening really locally in Massachusetts around zero waste and renewable energy. It's all very, very groundbreaking and exciting. But yeah.
Questions?
What places do you plan to visit? If you maybe put the list out.
Yeah, so that will be on a separate site. We're gonna have a blog page that'll be live called The Slow Traverse, and we are first going from Boston to Kingston.
The slow
Traverse. Yes.
Kingston, Ontario?
Yes. My grandparents have a house there, so my parents are planning to visit, and we are going to bike. It's 386 miles from our doorstep to Kingston. We are biking there, and one thing that we're going to try to do is see how much of this we can implement into our bike trip. So we camp and backpack a lot. It's really challenging. It's very arduous, so we will see how much we can do, and that'll also be a future discussion point. And then we're going across Canada, Banff, and Jasper, Vancouver, and then down West Coast, through Central America, and eventually South America.
Is this all biking?
Yes, by bicycle.
Wow.
Yes. more you actually get.
So you're
Yeah.
coming back in 2030?
Yes.
Won't be fixed by then.
Exactly. I'm leaving it in all of your hands. Bye. Good luck. More questions, or discussion on like things that you've tried, things that you really think are a problem. I didn't talk about like 90% of stuff. Oh, one important discussion point that I have definitely written about is I did not talk about feminine hygiene, and that's a huge point for things that are thrown away. So pads and tampons, all conventional methods have a lot of chemicals, they have a lot of waste. That's something that needs solutions, and there are some. So Diva cups or any kind of cup of the sort, if you hate that notion, Thinks is a really good brand for underwear that have built-in pads and you just wash them. They're quite expensive, they're like $35 a pair, but you keep them and they're game changers. They're like phenomenal. Natural Cycles is another thing. Those are kind of my three-prong approach. Natural Cycles is an also alternative to therapeutic birth control. So no packaging, no plastic, no hormones. Your body, your take. So, but that's a temperature-based model. Yes.
So that makes me think of people who can't afford these products. You know, there's a lot of people out there that you've given us a lot of information, but
Absolutely.
a lot of it is very expensive. People don't have access to it. And I just want to point out that, you know, Sierra Club works on social justice in regards to environmental issues. So another reason to get involved, because the people that are affected the most are the people from communities that can't avoid these products.
Yeah.
So one thing that, that's why I mentioned privilege, right? That's why, like I mentioned the trip at the end, is I'm in a position where I'm able to do that, and that's excellent, but it's also, it's not helping a lot of people. So I think that one thing that I try to do now is when I buy people presents, anything that I give people, it is something along the lines of this. And then I try really hard to ask not for gifts, but to switch those gifts towards something else. And then also, though, to realize that it's a supply and demand issue. So if everyone who's in a place of privilege can purchase items like this, it would reduce the cost and therefore make it more accessible to everyone. So by shifting and maybe getting some interaction with that, it's a very good point. Which is why I think we need more solutions.
And there's also a role for our policymakers to play. You know, as much as folks can show that this is a priority for them, that the government will just theoretically legislate accordingly. But yeah.
Yes.
I've just finished reading Becoming by Michelle Obama, and there's a wonderful section in there where she's so truthful about her life, but she said she was a very busy professional woman, and she was eating a lot of fast food and fast food products, etc. So anyways, her daughter, Malia, the pediatrician, said she was on the route, might be obesity. And she just was horrified, trying to figure out what she would do. So she's talking about privilege, though. She did hire a chef because she was campaigning everything. That chef ended up to be in the White House with the garden that she started. He helped her start the garden. They had talked about it. How do we bring fresh fruit, fresh vegetables to people? And that it's worth reading those sections. Anyways, worth reading the book. But the whole idea of gardens and urban gardens and people being able to have fresh vegetables and then not having processed and packaged and food.
Yes. Yeah, I think that, and I didn't mention it, it was a slide at one point, for the local involvement, reaching out to the local community gardens and getting involved with that. We've done that. We now have a community garden plot, but again, it's one step. Can you speak to anything getting that involved?
So, even in Boston, there are food deserts. I think, really lack of accessibility to healthy foods is a real problem, especially for students. Sometimes kids who go to school, their only real meal they're having in the day is the lunch they get at school. So it's really important that meal be a high quality one. And there are a number of local organizations that do work on this that I'm sure could use support. Healthy Chelsea is one that I know is doing some excellent work, and they're affiliated with MGH and also the environmental justice group in Chelsea. Check them out and support them, and there's a number of other local groups elsewhere that could use similar support.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point in the sense. I completely lost my train of thought.
It happens, it's the end of the day.
Anyway, sorry, completely lost my thought.
Bye, Alan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, the other piece of that too is that, there's, again, a role for policymakers to play when we think about our, funding priorities for education. I'm very focused on state policy news. But yeah. No?
No.
We'll come back to it?
No. Yeah.
So where do we start with the policymakers to make the biggest impact?
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, how many folks live in Cambridge by show of hands? How many folks don't live in Cambridge? Let's do it that way.
Sourville?
Sorry, can we just shout out if you don't where you live?
Arlington.
Alright, cool. So, for all of those cities and towns, you all have state representatives who represent you in the State House. And by and large, the Cambridge, Somerville, Arlington, Brookline reps are good in terms of what Sierra Club wants them to be supporting. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be hearing from you. So I think that's always a great step, is if you're thinking about trying to have an impact policy-wise, getting a chance to meet your state rep and talk about what they're working on is amazing, because they're all just people, right? State reps only make like $60-something thousand. Like they don't, except for a few of them, they're not really high rollers. And the ones in this area are by and large advocating for the right thing. So if you call their office and say, I want to meet with them and ask them what they're working on in terms of climate, in terms of agriculture, they'll tell you. And if you're having trouble getting in touch with them, talk to me and I'll make sure it happens. I think that's such a good place to start. And the other thing I'd say is that Sierra Club, we hold regular trainings for folks who really want to get involved in the policy aspect. So I can send out some information within a follow-up email, but we do these trainings like at least a couple times a month. So lots of good opportunities to plug in. I have one more piece to that. No, that's pretty good. And then, the other thing is local organizations. So Cambridge has an awesome, Cambridge, 350 Cambridge Somerville, who we partner with, is an awesome local organization that they only work on climate and clean energy stuff. But I always like to lift them up. They really know what's going on locally. So they're good to talk to about that. If you're interested in something like zero waste or something, those policies, plastic reduction, you come talk to us. I have some folks that will point in the right direction. What is cutting edge? It's a rambling answer, but
Useful.
hopefully.
More questions? Caveats?
I'll say that, for some of these things, so my wife and I make our own face lotion and what do you call it, laundry detergent. And I will say, super time consuming more than expensive, but time is money in some ways. Time is the hardest part. But I will say we've had good success in just doing everything in huge batches. You do it once, you spend a couple hours, hopefully not that long, on a weekend, do a big batch. And then it lasts you 3 months,
Solid
like
or liquid detergent?
Solid.
So I was with the borax and soda ash. So I was also making that a couple of years ago in grad school, and it is time consuming. To make a jar will take an hour, but if you do make a big batch, it's a lot better. You have to create a bar of soap and put it in. This laundry detergent, actually the Eco Nuts I find are better than that. But all of the materials he's talking about to make those soaps all come in cardboard boxes.
Right.
You can find everything in just cardboard
Super
boxes.
cheap.
It's very cheap. It is very, very cheap. I can put that on the list of stuff. Here's one for. You can contribute that if you want. But there are a lot of things that already exist about that. But if you don't want to go digging, we can try to make that more accessible. Yeah.
Do you have certain websites that you go to frequently that have these recipes, I guess I'd say, like, or ones that you find that have been particularly useful? Because I know I can start Googling around, but if there's
Yeah.
like one or two that you really trust, I'm sure it's probably on your list.
So
or-
that is my, so again, the list is like a bare bones approach, which is, it's already a lot. You guys will see that it's quite lengthy, but what my plan is to go back through and take all of the things that I found that are really useful and what I draw from and put them in. So that will all be getting there, so just keep cycling through that site, yeah. It's all gonna hopefully be there. So you guys don't have to do the legwork to find some things that work. And then you can deviate, then you can do research once you find like, this really doesn't work for me, I wanna try this.
I want to throw out one more thing too. A lot of times at different methods, people ask me how they can reduce their energy footprint. So whether you're a renter or you own a house, you can always do a free mass save audit with the state. They'll give you a bunch of LED light bulbs. They'll tell you to close your drafty windows. They'll give you a bunch of great advice. If you own the building, you can do more with it. But even as a renter, they'll give you a lot of good advice. Some things you can do without your landlord's permission, just switching out light bulbs and stuff like that. Some things are simple things, but do you need landlord's permission? That's always good to know, so mass save. And then, I believe for all the towns people mentioned, all these towns are part of community choice aggregation or community choice energy. Has anyone heard of that? So that's great, which means that your town is giving you more renewable energy than some of the neighboring towns. But all these programs also have what's called an opt-up, which means you can pay a little more per month, and the city will buy 100% renewable energy on behalf of your, whatever energy your apartment or your house is using. So I have this in my apartment. I have like 3 roommates. It's a pretty old, 100-year-old drafty house, pretty typical Somerville. It comes up to be like $8 to $11 more a month. It doesn't really, I feel privileged that I can do this, but it doesn't really break the bank. And you're essentially using 100% renewable energy and not having solar panels on your house.
I also took out an infographic addressing that in terms of like scalability and like the total tons of CO2 that you consume as a function of actions. So I can throw that on there. But it talks about like how minimal, like we have the concept of changing light bulbs and how small that is compared to like changing your diet, changing the way you travel. And I didn't talk about any of those things because those are a talk on its own, right? But diet, and not just going to true vegan, because palm oil is also like the number 2 deforestation right now, product for deforestation, so keep that in mind. But there's a whole dialogue around like how many kids you have and like people around you, and the concept of travel, food, lifestyle changes that are really dramatic, and energy audits are on there. It's one of the like, good things, like big things you can do.
So the best thing the mass government does, in my opinion.
It's a lot of subsidies too for energy pushes, yeah.
And you already paid for it, everybody already chips in on their bills for those audits, and you can't give that money away
This guy
fast
would know.
enough.
Sorry, quick stop.
What's that?
I said you would know, but
Yeah, so we don't do any of those, but, I mean, that's the first step. Yeah, easy, already paid for.
Any other burning questions? Yeah.
It's not really an everyday action thing, but maybe like everyday product techniques. What do you think in terms of like the processing or synthesis or degradation of household products?
Yeah.
Where do you think there would be like, either building them up or breaking them down or filtering them out, so it would be like a game changer if there was like a specific scientific advancement?
So like for soaps, so they just didn't go into water? Is that your question?
No, just like some of the everyday products that you thought about. For example, you talked about like the stuff that comes off of like synthetic things.
Oh, yeah, like microplastics.
Yeah. Is there something that
I think we would
that,
have-
like, really adds up that you think like science should pay attention to?
I think that like completely designing new materials would be phenomenal, right? But it's a really big challenge because how do you make something waterproof and biodegradable simultaneously? So you need a process in there that can break it down so that you can go outside and do things and transport things and manufacture without having degradation. So of course you need to know that there are a lot of polymers that you can do like pH cleavage, photo cleavage, whatever, and degrade. So that's an alternative as long as it's a clean product in the end, right? But I think we have to re-envision how we do things. So like how do laundry machines work to produce microplastics, and if we don't degrade them and we completely restructure that, or just change the materials. right? The same concept is recycling. So how do you completely overhaul the concept of recycling? If recycling did not exist as a manufacturing process now, so that the majority of the things we're recycling are trashed, how can you actually get them to be recycled? Right? So every time you take a plastic, you break it down into segments, how can you prevent that degradation? That's all up to.
But a lot of the problems with recycling are like, I didn't realize, like, you mean like they're like physical things?
It's physical, like the
Actual-
conveyor belts that bring it up. That's why we can't recycle straws. That's why we can't recycle bottle caps.
Okay.
It's not because the polymer inherently is too short already and can't be degraded further and downcycled, basically. It's that it's just that manufacturing process. So I think we need addresses from all fronts.
Just a quick shout out to recycling, just because we're like I don't. This is a whole 3-hour presentation, but like we're in the recycling crisis right now. There's actually an article in the Boston Globe today about how we're in a recycling crisis, and basically it was like I read it very briefly, but someone from I believe Casella, who is the main recycling service in this area, basically saying like we are so overwhelmed with trash recycling. We need people like basically stop buying boxes of Amazon, but like that's not gonna happen. It's like what do we do? So I'm not trying to tell everyone like stop buying things off Amazon, although like I probably could and it wouldn't be a problem. But just to know that there are huge fundamental issues with recycling, and I think we are maybe like grappling a little too late with how to deal with those. So just that's.
Well, and we can't export a lot of it anymore. Anyway,
Yeah.
it needs a whole discussion on its own,
Yeah.
and it's a band-aid, right? So
Yeah.
what I want to try to emphasize is that these approaches don't necessarily, I don't want you to perceive them as a band-aid, which they are in a sense, right? They're a solution to something that might not even have to exist, a problem that we could alleviate in a different way. And I think that's something to keep in mind. So think beyond the seemingly band-aid-esque products.
Yeah, some good homework is to read an article too about how recycling works. It's really great if you can watch a video on how single source recycling works. That was like mind blowing for me. So something to look up on YouTube.
Okay, I think that we'll be done now. But we'll be around to have discussions and dialogues if you want to meet with either one of us. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for coming, and I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Katie.